Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. You might notice a little bit of a change in the scene here, and that is because we're going to have a little bit of a lore dive in terms of Battle for Azeroth, the current World of Warcraft expansion. Now, Shadowlands is coming out. We're going to talk about that in later videos, but I just want to 100% keep everyone, kind of in notice here that Shadowlands isn't out. Battle for Azeroth is. And in terms of if you are a new player to World of Warcraft, you're going to be seeing the Battle for Azeroth content. You're going to go through the initial Battle for Lordaeron, and I'm going to cover some of that here, and I figured, why not give you a fun little thing to look at while we're talking? Because as handsome as I might be, you don't really want to look at my mug the entire time. So, for a new player, when you start out, the Battle for Azeroth story is very important. In fact, it's so important that this is the first time in forever that one expansion is connected directly to the last one. So the last one was called Legion, and all you really need to know is this big bad god dude came down and stabbed a giant sword into our planet. Upon doing so, the little baby god soul within our planet, that we still have no idea how she's going to come out and not destroy the planet when she does it, she got stabbed. And her blood's coming out, and her blood is called Azerite. Her name is Azeroth. Huh. Really interesting, right? Anyways, Azeroth is bleeding, and someone came back. Someone very important came back in Legion. In the previous expansions, which is something that we're probably going to cover at some point, comes back. His name is Magni Bronzebeard. He's essentially the king of the dwarves, and he turned to a diamond statue way back in, I think, Cataclysm, when he tried to talk to the planet. Well, he's back. He's still made of diamonds, but he's back, and he's like, listen, I can hear the world soul. She's crying out in pain. And he brings you to what is called the Chamber of the Heart. The Chamber of the Heart is one of these Titan facilities, and what Titans are is essentially the dude that stabbed something into our planet and the planet herself. Again, something that we'll cover later on. He brings you there. He's like, listen, champion, you've done so much for the planet. She sees you as one of our heroes, and so she's going to give you this heart of Azeroth, which is really interesting because it's just a necklace. And you're going to absorb the Azerite so that it empowers her and we can heal her. Which, by the way, really interesting thing about the sword later on, anyways. So, we do that, but Azerite has popped out. And it's really important to know that World of Warcraft is a two-faction game. Now, sure, there's a bunch of random, non-allied factions, there's kobolds, there's Naga, stuff like that. But you've essentially got the Alliance, which is humans, elves, dwarves, gnomes, werewolves, and space goat hobos fighting against the Horde, who are orcs, who are interplanetary invaders from the planet Draenor, and goblins, blood elves, who are very similar to the night elves of the Alliance. It's just, instead of getting the power from nature, they suck it out of other things, and they're like crackheads, but they didn't get to the point of losing teeth. Those are Nightborn. And Tauren, who are big cow people. Trolls, who are big, blue trolls. Those are the base races, anyways. There's also Pandaren, which is the only neutral race in the entire game. Now, there's also something called allied races, which is something we'll get into in another video because they kind of play an important point. Anyways, the Azerite is out. The Horde and the Alliance worked together to defeat the Legion, because in the war against the Legion, some of the best characters were killed. King Varian Wrynn, who, if you played Alliance, has been your king for over 15 years. He was killed in the Legion assault, but he died like a badass. Then you have the War Chief Vol'jin, who was War Chief for, what expansion? I guess. before he died and passed it on to Sylvanas. Anyways, at the beginning of this, the goblins, they're all about making gold. So the Goblin King, a short, fat little dude, he runs over and he talks to Sylvanas and he shows this big globe of what we now know as azurite to Sylvanas, and it was brimming with power, and when she touches it, she just becomes super smart. She can think of a million ways to use it. It's a giant weapon, and it's super powerful, right? She wants to turn it into weapons. Now, at the same time that goblins are messing around in this area where the sword is, because the sword plunged in, the Alliance, their humans have kind of spotted the goblins. Right now, there's kind of an understandable peace. Like, we're not going to fight you because we just worked together to finish a world-ending threat that actually threatened the entire universe. And they're like, hey, the goblins are digging this up. And the soldier brings a small piece of azurite to the king, and he touches it. And in that moment, King Anduin Rin, right? He gets the same visions as the war chief. He knows how powerful this is. He's like, this could save so many people, but it is also a weapon. And he doesn't want it to become a weapon. So he's like, okay, we'll keep an eye on it. If it looks like they're trying to weaponize it, we're going to stop them. It causes a little bit of a war. And in that area, there's like a little rare ogre, which ogres are ogres. You kill him and you get a book. Now, one thing that World of Warcraft does really well is they manage to kind of hide puzzles and everything for their lore. And people are like, oh, this doesn't mean anything. So you get a little book talking riddles. And it turns out all those riddles take place. This happened even back in Legion. So you can kill him and get it. But Horde sees this as the Alliance making a move. Now Sylvanas, the war chief, well, she wants to have a preemptive strike, which in the history of Warcraft has worked out so well each and every time the Horde has decided to do it. Her target, one of the world trees. And if you played TBC and I think like Warcraft 2 or Warcraft 3, you'll know what a world tree is. Like this giant fucking tree that's super important to Night Elves and everything. So she goes to attack the Night Elf capital. And she manages to do something very interesting to the Alliance forces. She has them spread out. Like, oh, well, they're going to attack this way. So all the Alliance forces go one way, and she goes to attack this world tree, which is off on the end. And her plan isn't to destroy it. Her plan is to essentially take everyone prisoner, use them as ransom or whatever, and hold them off, wait for the Alliance to surrender, and then conquer the Alliance. The problem is she has an anger issue. Now, there are videos that talk about this. I think it's Warbringer Sylvanas, where she's talking to one of the Rangers. And it's very important to know that before she became an undead elf through a bunch of random stuff, again, if you guys want to know any of the lore that I'm not actually going into, check out Novel 86 or 87. He has a bunch of lore videos, and they're all great, and his accent's kind of endearing. But she's talking to someone who knew her, and she's like, oh, this happened to me. It's like, it's okay. You will die. You don't have to be sad about death. She's like, I'm not crying for me. I'm crying for you. Because you think that you can stop life. You think that you can stop hope. That pissed her off. So what did she do? She ordered her men to take the catapults of the super strong azurite stuff, which increases explosive power by at least 10 times, and shoots the tree, burning thousands of innocent lives, including elves and worgen, and just killing a bunch of people. Now, before she did this, she fought what is quite possibly the single most powerful character between either of the factions. It's very important to note that even though the Horde and Alliance do have a kind of war going on, they are not on equal footing in terms of power. Now, the strongest character on the planet is known as the Guardian. He doesn't take part in this war. As soon as we're done with the Legion, he says fuck off. Once he notices us kind of getting into a war, he's like, "Fuck it, I'm not messing with you," and he bolts. So the Horde have some really powerful shamans, but the world shaman, who was supposed to have full control of the elements, kind of fucked off a bit because, like, oh, you know, I made this mistake. Now the elements have forsaken me. You got Sylvanas, who has like explodey arrows and stuff. You've got the orcs who are like, blah, I'm gonna beat you, and all that. They don't really have any extra super powerful people among them once the shaman's gone. The trolls have nobody. The goblins have tech that we beat every time we fight them. What does the Alliance have? The Alliance has their king, who's a very powerful priest. The Alliance also have the space goat hobos, the Draenei, who have a fucking spaceship with a cannon. What else do they have? Well, just in terms of this battle, someone who did show up to fight is known as Malfurion. Malfurion is the first druid. Now, what this means is he has really big power boosts. In fact, the few times that you see him fight, he's able to go toe-to-toe with some high-level demons, right? He's really strong. But he almost gets killed by an arrow. And he doesn't stop her really, other than making this wall of wisps, which is like dead elf spirits. So he's essentially useless. Why? Because without nerfing him, this war couldn't happen. So she burns the tree down. She commits genocide because she was angry. People are like, no, actually, Blizz has a plan for it. We're going to get into that, but I think it's still stupid. So what happens after that? Well, after that, Sarfang, this big orc bro, he gets captured. And he's arrested, essentially. He refuses to kill the Alliance King. He had to choose between loyalty to the Horde or honor. That wasn't his Horde anymore. So, after the events at the tree, they go back to the Undercity, also known as the Fallen City of Lordaeron. And the Alliance figure, fuck you guys. We're taking our city back because something else happened. Something else very important to the story. You see, back in Legion, you find out that the true lineage, the royal bloodline of Lordaeron, did not stop with the Lich King, Arthas. His sister survived. And by the way, her daughter, it's not actually revealed that, you know, this person's her daughter yet, but come on, everyone knows it. Anyways, Sylvanas had her killed. Sylvanas doesn't want any of the Forsaken, any of her people, any of the undead to believe that they can go back to living their normal lives. Right? And some people are like, oh, she's just a bitch. I can kind of see where she's coming from, because back before she did all this, she went to hell for a minute, and then she got rescued by these Valkyr, and it's stupid. It gets pretty convoluted later on. But anyways, the battle for Azeroth is on. The Alliance attack Lordaeron. Sylvanas, being an evil bitch, commits the most heinous of crime, worse than genocide. She uses something known as the Plague of Undeath. She's using this in this war, where she's also now able to raise skeletons by herself, not using one of her little angel spirit healer bros, which is new powers for her, which also comes into that thing later. Anyways, the Alliance start fighting. They fight off some mechs. They fight off these zombies. The plague starts coming, so they have to start pulling back, and then these storm clouds roll in. It's like, what's going on? Who is this? What's going on? And in comes Jaina Proudmoore, a very high-ranking mage, a member of the Kirin Tor of Dalaran, who's supposed to technically be neutral, but genocide kind of changes that a little bit. So she's coming in on her dad's old ship. It's important to keep in mind what she's doing here. She's making it float with arcane magic. She freezes the entire battlefield, making the plague pointless. and she makes arcane ghost cannons appear on the ship. The Horde have nobody who can match that. The war could have easily been ended there, because the Alliance also have Sylvanas' sisters, both of them. That's right, Deuce. One of them, just a really good hunter. The other one, a void-empowered being of total destruction. So they go, and they eventually get to the throne room, and Sylvanas is waiting there. She's like, oh, little lion, kind of like teasing everybody while she sends her little manservant off. And I really hate him. He's a self-insert character of an author. Ugh, I hate him. And she's just sitting there, and she's talking to them, and Anduin's like, no, what happened, that was my failure. But I'm here to make sure it doesn't happen again. And then, her sister kind of notices something's going on, and Sylvanas is like, oh, you've already lost the war. Flies away, and then the entire place fills with plague. Luckily, Jaina finally learned how to teleport on time, got them all out of there. The next thing that happens, holy crap, it's already been 16 minutes. The next thing that happens is Sylvanas takes a couple of her people and is like, hey, so there's some people over in the Stormwind prison that we need to get out. One of the people that you know is in prison is Sarfang, because after what happened at Lordaeron, that's when he gave up. He is a very honorable orc. That's the thing with orcs. Honor, honor, honor. And Sylvanas is, like, she even told him, she's like, oh, you can stay here and die, or you can do your job, and left. So he chose to be arrested. Anduin did not kill him out of respect for his, essentially, reputation. So, this is going to be a bit of a long video. It's fucking 2 years worth of lore, guys. I'm sorry. So, the Horde sends a little team in to infiltrate the barricades. Now, you're given a potion, which I think is really cool, because if you actually take the potion, you die. It's a quick death. Anyways, you go in there and you rescue people, and you see Sarfang, you're like, Sarfang, we're gonna bring you out! He's like, no, I choose to stay. Now, it's important to note that before it launched, he actually walked up to a group of Alliance soldiers, like, take me to your king. But in reality, he's like, no, the ones you're looking for are down the hall. So you end up rescuing 2 trolls, but they're different from the trolls that you have. In fact, if you go through the lore a little bit on Novel, you'll find that these are Zandalari trolls. And they're like, okay, fine, get us out of here, we'll help you. We came to find you to help us, so we're going. One of them's the princess, the other one's a dark prophet, who he's an asshole the entire time. And as you're sneaking out, he's setting stuff on fire. He's like, why? He's like, oh, it's okay. And he tells you where to go. He's a prophet. And the entire time, you're outrunning Jaina Proudmoore. This is the 3rd time that the Horde has fucked with her. First, blowing up a city in which her lover and one of her apprentices was. And then using her city of Dalaran, which was supposed to be neutral, as a way to steal shit from the Alliance for the Horde. And now this, with the whole burning of the world tree, it's like, nah, you done. And the prophet's like, oh, well, yes, you could stop us and freeze us, but your city's burning. Maybe you should stop that. Why didn't you freeze them and then do that? You had the power. But I digress. Anyway, she does that. They get away. The Alliance sends ships after them. You find out that the princess is, like, protected by a Loa, which is what the trolls call a wild god. And the one she's protected by is Razan, the Loa of Kings, this giant armored T-Rex. And during their chase, she summons his power, and he pushes them forward. Just enough so that when the Alliance gets forward, they're within the firing range of the Zandalari fleet and get destroyed. The Alliance learns of this, and the Alliance is like, well, we don't have a navy. The Alliance doesn't really have a navy, despite the fact that most of the Horde is on another continent. There was never really a need for a navy. Because magic. Well, luckily, Jaina Proudmoore does know of a navy. It's the Coltiran Navy. Coltiris is where she hails from. She's kind of been kicked out. And the reason why she was kicked out, she's kind of the reason why her dad died. But to be fair, her dad was a terrible racist that wanted the world to essentially die if it meant working with the Horde. So we go back, and she's warned by the Worgen King, who just had his wife die in that giant tree fire. It's like, listen, they won't let you back. No, they will. And that's when the speaker talks to us, gives us the necklace to empower with Azerite, and then we go with her to Coltiris. Well, interestingly enough, everyone recognized this girl who's been gone for over 10 years, while Coltiris kept to itself and didn't want anything to do with the Alliance. The reason being because after what happened with Jaina's dad, the Alliance didn't seek retribution for Coltiris, so they decided to stay. Jaina's mom became the leader because all of her brothers died, except for one, Dalek Proudmoore, who just kind of wandered off. And, by the way, Dalek Proudmoore, originally not a canon character. He was originally just for the comics, but thanks to Blizzard, he's brought back. And he makes reference to the red shirt guy, which, please look him up. He's hilarious. He goes to every BlizzCon. He's become a living meme. He's cool. He calls Blizzard out when they make a lore fuck up. So, he's lost. The Coltiran fleet is lost at sea. No one knows why. No one knows what's going on. Well, we come back and her mother's like, you betrayed us. And she's got this Ursula-looking bitch, like, whispering in her ear, like, hey, you abandoned us. And so Jaina's like, listen, I'll pay whatever price. I'll pay for my crime, right? I'll pay for what I did. But please, help the Alliance. The world is in danger. Help us. And her mom's like, no, send them to the brig. You go through a thing, you break out, you're like, ayo, what's up? You almost get arrested, but then the Worgen King comes and he holds a bit of clout because he's a big thing. Jaina was not saved, however, because Jaina is being sent off to a special island that no one returns from. Because this island is the land of nightmares. Now, back on the Horde side, what you've got going on is you go into the Zandalari Empire. You're not really welcome because they don't like outsiders. The king is like, oh, you no need be here. We are the Zandalari. And all that is like, listen, you helped my daughter, but we don't like outsiders. Wakanda forever. But you help him out a little bit. He's like, listen, there are whispers. And his daughter's like, these people are trying to kill him. So you just kind of have to prove yourself. You're given a small place, and some people on the council that advises the king really don't like you. Next, you choose what you do to adventure, more or less. While you're adventuring, you're collecting Azerite, and it empowers your Azerite armor, which is, by the way, the worst system in the game. But we're not talking about systems, we're talking about lore. And I think that is a good place, actually, to at least cut this video.